Okay, we're ready, finally. Sorry for the delay. Okay, so as I said, several of the steps from the previous lesson, which we may or may not remember, are going to be carried over to this. Our first step is to find the least common denominator, and that's going to be the most difficult part, not the most, one of the more challenging parts. And then step 2 we've done, writing it as a single fraction, and then step 3, that's the challenging part, getting this part correct, okay? And then the last 3 are the 3 steps we've covered before. Okay, so first question. I'm creating a common denominator. Is x or x squared bigger?
X squared.
X squared is bigger. So this would be like having denominators of 4 and 16. 16 is bigger. 16 would be the common denominator. So if you think of it in terms of numbers, you would pick the bigger number. So x and x squared is bigger, so x squared becomes the common denominator. And this is where we play like a little compare game, okay? So now I compare. This denominator right here, x, needs to look like this denominator, x squared. So what would x need to be multiplied by to be x squared?
X squared.
Another x.
Oh.
Just another x. So we have one x, I need another x, so I'm going to multiply by x. That, whatever has to be multiplied by, gets written up with the numerator. This denominator, x squared, looks exactly like that denominator, x squared, so that one doesn't have to be multiplied by anything because it looks exactly the same. So then I do my multiplication. I take my 4 times x, 4x, bring over my sign, plus, and then bring over my 8. And then in order, I do the steps add, factor, reduce. Add, factor, reduce. So 4x plus 8 cannot be added. They're different terms. One has an x, one doesn't. Factor, that I can do. They both have a common factor of 4. So 4 comes out. 4 into 4x leaves me x, plus 4 divided into 8 is 2. Over x squared. And then reduce. This x is part of a group. It's part of x plus 2, which means I can't reduce those x's because that x is stuck with that plus 2. So that's my final answer. I'm done at that point. One of the things I really want you to learn how to do, especially with this lesson and start learning to do for this semester, is using your notes. So when you go to your OTL, and I've seen a couple of you do it already, and you're really good at it, do your split screen and use your notes as you work through the questions because they're similar. I'm not going to give you examples and then the assignment's completely different, okay? So we're going to learn how to use our notes a little bit better. Okay, I'm creating a common denominator. We have to make sure that everything's covered in the common denominator. So I start with the first denominator. I need to have an x minus 1 over here. So I go over there and I write x minus 1. And then I jump to the second fraction. I need to have an x plus 1. So I write that over there. So my common denominator is x minus 1, x plus 1. And then I compare. Now, don't make this harder than it is. When I look at the first fraction and I compare it to the common denominator, what's missing? What's
5?
Denominators only. So when I look at this denominator and I compare it to this denominator, what's missing?
The plus sign.
What does this say?
Minus.
What does this say right here?
Oh no.
X minus 1.
X minus 1. What does this say?
X minus
X minus 1.
Read-
Just X.
Read this to me.
1. X minus
It's
1.
nothing.
X plus 1.
Okay,
X to the
so
second.
this says X minus 1, correct?
X minus 1 times.
This says X minus 1 and X plus 1. So what's not here that is over here?
Plus. X minus 1.
The
X plus 1.
parentheses.
Okay, do you see this over here?
Parentheses.
Okay, just a minute. Do you see this X minus 1 over here?
Yes.
Okay, what else is there?
X plus 1.
And X plus 1. So that's what we're multiplying by. So you need to be able to look and compare. When I say, when you're comparing that denominator to the common denominator, you gotta look at what's missing or what's different. And that's what you're multiplying by. So like on this one, look at this denominator. What's not here that is over here?
X minus 1.
The X minus 1. So this one has the X plus 1, but it doesn't have the X minus 1. That's what we're multiplying by. So you're comparing the denominator to the common denominator. And you're multiplying by what's missing or what's not there compared to the denominator. So then I multiply through. 5 times X, 5 times 1, plus 4 times X, 4 times minus 1. And then in order, again, the order is important, add. So those can be added together, and those can be added together. So I'm gonna add 5x and 4x is 9x. Positive 5 minus 4 is positive 1. And I factor, which I cannot do, and I reduce, which I cannot do. So this 9x plus 1 is different than x plus 1. So I can't cancel those.
I thought we were supposed to put the bigger number on the bottom.
What?
Because didn't you say that at the top? You put X to the second, it's bigger, you put it on the bottom?
What are you talking about?
Never mind.
That was a different kind of question. Maybe that's you're thinking.
Funny, yeah.
Okay. Next question, common denominator. Start with the fraction on the left. My denominator needs to have an x, plain x. And then I move to this. My common denominator needs to have an x plus 4, that group. And then let's compare again. I gotta bring it down to make that happen.
That is.
The first fraction. What is this denominator missing that I have written over here?
X plus 4.
An x plus 4. And then what is this denominator missing that I have written over here?
X.
A plain x. So then I multiply. 5 times x, 5 times 4, plus comes over, 3 times x, and then in order, add, factor, reduce. So 5 and 3 give me 8x plus 20. Over my denominator. Factor, which I can do. I can take out a common factor of a 4. 4 divided into 8 is 2. bring over the x, and 4 divided into 20 is 5. And then reduce, which I cannot do. Okay, some questions so far.
Can you explain the factoring for the married woman?
Okay, so when you factor, we go back to what we did like all of November and December. When you factor, you're looking for something common first. So what's common to both 8 and 20? You're looking for a number that divides into both of those,
2,
and that's bigger number.
4.
That's where my 4 comes from. So then 4 comes on the outside, and if I take 4 divided into 8, I get 2, and then 4
Oh.
divided into 20 gives me my 5.
I understand. Thank you.
All right, common denominator. I need 6. I need x minus 2. I need 4. I need x minus 2, which I already wrote. So don't write it twice. All right, so compare. What is the first denominator missing to be the common denominator?
4.
It's missing the 4. What is the second denominator missing to be the common
6.
denominator? It's missing the 6. So I multiply 7x times 4, 28x, plus comes over, 2x times 6, 12x.
Oh, no.
So then we're gonna add 28 plus 12 is 40x. And in the denominator, we're going to put together those two. Because that looks really weird written like that. And we're gonna make it 24. So we're gonna take that 6 and 4 and make it 24. So we added, factor, we cannot factor this. But we can reduce. We're looking for the biggest number that goes into 40 and 24.
Probably 8.
Probably 8. So 8 goes into 40 5 times. 8 divides into 24 3 times. You could do that on your calculator if you wanted to. That will reduce for you. All right. Next question. Make my common denominator. I need an x plus 2. I need x minus 2. I need x plus 2, which I already wrote, so don't write it again. All right, so what does the first denominator need?
They're the same.
They're the same, so it doesn't need anything.
Yeah, what would they do?
What does the second denominator need?
X minus 2.
The x minus 2. So 16 comes over, plus, we're going to distribute 4 times x and 4 times minus 2. So then we're going to add, factor, reduce. Add, factor, reduce. So I can add the 16 minus 8 and get 8. The 4x I brought over in the front. Factor, which I can. What can I take out?
4.
A 4. So 4 divided into 4 leaves me x or 1x. 4 divided into 8 is 2. And then reduce, which I can also do. So this one had all 3 of those steps at the end.
Can you go back up to the
Mhm. Yeah, I was just checking to see what. Okay, 2 more questions. First one, making my LCD, starting on the left. I need an x minus 5. I need an x minus 1. Jumping to the next fraction, I need an x minus 2. And I need x minus 5, which I wrote, so don't write it again. So compare. What does the first denominator need? What's it missing?
X minus 2.
X minus 2. And then the second denominator needs
X minus 1.
x minus 1. So again, you're comparing this to this. And you're writing up here what's missing from the denominator. All right, so we multiply through. 4 times x. 4 times minus 2. Minus this time, so minus 3 times x. And minus 3 times minus 1. Positive 3. And then in order, add, factor, reduce. So add, 4 minus 3 is 1. Negative 8 plus 3 is negative 5, or minus 5. Factor, which I cannot do. And reduce, which I can do. My x minus 5s will go. Now, there's nothing left in the numerator, so there's an understood 1. That's the end of that. Okay, last one. Common denominator, start on the left. I need x plus 4. I need x plus 5. Jumping to the second denominator, I already have the x plus 5, so don't write it again. So let's compare. First denominator is missing
Nothing.
nothing. They look exactly the same. Second denominator is missing
X plus 4.
the x plus 4. So I multiply through. Well, actually nothing to multiply there, that just comes over. Minus 6 times x minus 6x minus 6 times positive 4 minus 24. And then add, factor, reduce. So when I add 7 minus 6, that gives me 1x. 25, I'm sorry, that's not what I'm going to get. 29 minus 24, no, that's not what I'm going to get. Positive 5, 29 minus 24, positive 5. So add, factor, which I cannot do, and reduce, which I can do. X plus 5's will cancel. Understood, 1 left in my numerator.